to attempt to introduce new taxes, given the number of new taxes we've seen over the last couple of years. So I'm not expecting that new taxes will come on stream.
Are we also expecting that, well, some taxes will be reduced?
Unlikely. I think
it will be unrealistic for any Ghanaian to think along those lines.
I mean, from what I've seen, I think, it's not like in the first half of the year, the revenues have outperformed our expectation in such a way that we should anticipate any reduction in taxes. Even though there's been clamoring, and then I think you understand why some people ask for some taxes to be removed or reduced, but you get a sense that that's unlikely. Don't forget that we're also in an election year, and typically government like to spend as much as they can.
Budget overruns.
So I think our expectation is some assurance, some believable assurance that this time we are not going to overrun our budget. We are going to stick to the target.
Is this realistic that we'll be able to stick to our allocation, budgetary allocation, and not overrun? We've seen election years come, and we've seen that governments have overrun their budgets.
It's a fair question to ask, and I think that we always hear the promises, but it never happens.
Exactly.
I am not expecting that we will stick to our target. I think for me it's a matter of to what degree we overrun. Because the incentive to overspend is so strong. Both parties, when they are in power, they know that it's better for them to be in power cleaning up a mess after an election than to go to opposition. So the incentive to overspend is very high. And fortunately, unfortunately, we don't have sufficient expenditure controls to prevent that happening. In the current IMF program that we are doing, there's been some attempt to reform how the government spends public money, expenditure controls, but we haven't gotten there yet. So there's still room for government to overspend. So I will be very surprised if we kept within our expenditure target. Maybe we might be able to keep it a little down than we've done in the previous years. But to expect, given how tight the election is going to be, it is expected to be, I'm not expecting that we'll keep within our expenditure target.
Since you mentioned the IMF, let me come to the IMF. With what the bailout we've received so far, are we going to see, like the finance minister will say, the economy taking its turn? Are we going to see a rebound? Are we going to see the cedi appreciate?
I think so. The general economy as a whole, I think the government has been too quick. The government, together with the IMF, has been too quick to pronounce that we've turned a corner.
They say the inflation is doing better, even though we are still in the double digits.
So I think they can say that, and then we also heard that the growth is higher than they projected. But if you put it in broader context, we always saw 2022 as a very bad year. But even the growth number for 2023, that the IMF says is stronger than they expected. It's still lower than what we saw in 2022, which we saw was a very bad year. So I think, and given the challenges we've had, given that the growth rate had been low and you started from a lower base, when you are recovering, you should see a spike, a kind of spike in the growth rate. We haven't seen that yet. And I think some of the short-term bounce we saw from the program coming into being has dissipated. And I think the handlers of the economy were too quick to say things are progressing. So yes, inflation has reduced, but we know that it's tapered off. And it's gotten the rate at which it was declining towards the end of last year. We don't have that anymore. We've been stuck between the 22 and 25 band for a while now. So you get the sense that the monetary tightening that we've seen has done its part. But there are supply side issues. The cost of doing business in this country is very high. And until that is brought down, it's hard to see we bringing the inflation down any further.
How do we bring that cost down, looking at our current economic dispensation?
I think, so if you think about the cost of doing business, so we have the utility cost, we have interest cost, and we have things like petroleum, transportation. Those are big problems. Now,
exactly. I mean, Gilbert and I were talking about that a while ago, especially when it comes to LPG.
So those are big issues. I think Ghanaians should be realistic, and the finance ministry should communicate that clearly. These things are not going to calm down soon. The one area that could help is if you have some stability in the currency, because that affects the fuel, it affects the transportation, and it cascades to everything else. Unfortunately, from where we sit, there's no clear short-term measure the government can put in place to stabilize the currency. I think when at the announcement that the third tranche was coming, I think the euphoria that led the finance minister to say tomorrow the city will stabilize was misplaced.
Okay.
Because 360 million is less than 5% of our gross reserves. So if you do give and take, that was about 2.7 months of import cover. That doesn't do even 1 week of our import cover. So usually when the way the markets work is that the market work on information flow. So if the markets are anticipating that some funds are coming and the funds come, it's no news. There wouldn't be much movement. The market already pricing. The markets are forward looking. It's only when there's new information about any inflow that has not been previously available, then you see some movement. That's why when the 360 million came, the markets barely moved. Nothing had really happened. So at the moment, in time past, what the government used to do is to go to the real bond market to borrow to support the city. That's no longer available to us.
We don't even have that luxury anymore.
So I think we have to come back and look at both the current account, that is our import of goods and services, and then the capital and financial account. So there's been a lot of talk that we have to diversify our exports. Now, when you look at the numbers, since 2017, we have the value of our merchandise export has exceeded the value of our merchandise import. So our trade balance has been a surplus since 2017. So even though there's more room for us to expand our export base, that is not the immediate cause of the cedi's depreciation. But when you look at the other items, you look at export and import of services. We are exporting so many services. And also because of our previous borrowing and the foreign direct investment that we received in the past, it means that what we call the investment income, paying interest and organizations repatriating their profit, have put such pressure on the currency. So ultimately, those have to be addressed. And those are not things you address in a short term. So we have to think about how we finance the economy going forward. The economy is too reliant on foreign financing. But that, like I said, that's not something you can do in a short period of time. So unfortunately, even though we wish that there's some magic one that the government can wait and then the currency will be stable, we don't really have that at the moment. So, but what we want to hear, what will be reassuring is that the government will communicate a clear and believable plan that we know that when we follow, in the medium term, the economy will be stronger and the currency will be firmer. That's what I hope that the finance minister will communicate, so that even though we know there's short-term pain, we know that going forward, things will be better.
The finance minister has been talking about how much debt restructuring has hurt us, because he mentioned that even countries that have done restructuring have not even been able to go up to about 1%. So for us as a country, we're doing better. Is this our reality?
So now, I think one of the problems we have is we tend to focus too much on the macroeconomic indicators and forget that these people's lives are at stake. So the finance ministry will look at the growth number or the inflation number and say we are doing well. Indeed, the first quarter growth, for instance, it beat the expectation. 4.7 or so, completely beat the expectation. But when you begin to look into the details, you realize that the problems are still there.
Yeah.
So you realize that the sectors that saw the biggest growth, mining and quarrying, that is where we count our oil output. And over the last year or so, new mining companies have come on stream. So that helps. Of course, the ICT also saw a huge growth.
Yeah.
That one is positive. But if you look at all the subsectors together, there are about 20 subsectors. 6 of them contracted. Even though the growth number said the growth was higher than we expected, 6 subsectors of 20 contracted. But more troubling, the electricity subsector contracted 8.5%. Now, you notice that it's not the first time. For the past 3 years or 2 years, electricity production has been contracting. So when we look at what this means in terms of the economy going forward, clearly, even though the growth number says it's better than we expected, you notice that, there are hidden problems. Now, the other thing is that there's other data about the economy that shows that things are actually getting worse. So I'm sure you've recently reported the multi-dimensional poverty indicator.
Yes.
We've also seen the number of Ghanaian youth who are neither in employment, education, or training. All those are going up. So when you look at those, you realize that focusing too much on the growth, we miss the point. Because the sectors that are growing, the oil and the mining, Ghanaian participation in those sectors are very limited. So even though it will say that it's growing, most of the benefits will not go to Ghanaians because Ghanaian participation in those sectors are limited. And we have not created enough linkages between those sectors and the other sectors of the economy. So it's like an enclave. So when they grow, only that sector grows. It doesn't pull the other sectors along. So that's why, there's some disconnect between the growth number that is being put out and what people are actually reporting in terms of their daily circumstances.
Now, Gilbert, I see that you've been making a number of points, especially when it comes to our city depreciation and what we can do to help our city appreciate. Is it realistic that after the receipt of our third tranche, and if government stays within its budget confines, we will see the city appreciate?
Even if the city appreciates, it will be short term. You see, the key thing is that, like I did indicate earlier on, we are not a production or a manufacturing oriented economy. You see, so there isn't that balance in terms of how much we are exporting vis-a-vis how much we are importing. So the bailout can come in, give us some short respite, and we'll still go back to that. So it's like a roller coaster ride. Every time we go back, we go for bailout. And you see, it also cascades into the area of employment, like Prof said. If you look at the extractive industry, what have we been able to carve out of it in order for it to affect the other sectors, which will then create room for employment? It's very important. You can only manage your effects when there is that balance. And I don't think we as a country, we are there yet in terms of having a fair balance between our export and our imports, because we are heavily dependent on what? Imports. I was watching Facebook on the other time and I realized that, look, they're even importing certain types of towels, which I felt that we have the raw materials here
to manufacture.
And I looked at the comments that, oh, no, this is of high quality. You don't have that kind of marbles. What we even have, what have we been able to create out of it? What we even have, assuming you don't have the kind of marbles we are all talking about, what we have, of course, what we have could also fit into the demand of other markets. It could. So it's very important that we think about production. We take measures to be able to do that. And like I did indicate to you, the incubation period is very key. Policies must be put in place in order to achieve. Until we are able to get there, I don't see how. Prof has been in this business for a very long time. I think that this issue of debt structuring, exchange rate thing has been historically our problem. If you want to do a historical analysis, you see. So you bring in the bailout. They bring in whatever amount of dollars. You have a balance. But like he said, at the end of every year, these multinationals will want to repatriate profit, and that's where the pressure comes. Because they are repatriating huge. Why are they doing business here? They have workers who are expatriates. The income that they earn in dollars, not in Ghana,
sent back to their respective countries.
Their respective country, because they need to feed their families and do other stuff. So, because of that cycle we are running, we always find ourselves in that problem. And if you do a historical analysis, you see that getting to the end of the year, where companies want to now repatriate, you see the pressure. You see the pressure on the cities, and it will always be there.
And is that something that we're likely to see this year, especially election year? I mean, a lot of looking at the situation in the sub-region, and a lot of these companies who want to go back home before the elections are conducted. Are we going to see more pressure?
Most likely, could, depending on how we also. That's why our political gimmicks must be done carefully, because all of these have economic implication. If these entities feel unsafe, I mean, looking at the issues that are happening around, of course, I would want to repatriate my investment. Already they are, because of the cost of doing business. There are businesses that are relocating to neighboring countries, and they are doing business in. The irony of it is that they are doing business in Ghana, but they've repatriated to what? Cote d'Ivoire and other neighboring countries because of what? The economic structure, the taxing system, the cost. If all of this interplays into the dynamics of the economy, and it's very important. If we don't look at that, and we are always taxing, you see, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. In principle. So we are taking huge corporate tax. Okay, fine. Then I'll ensure that I cut down on the personnel I have in order to be able to manage my cost. I cut down on some other things, and all these things have tax types. If I cut down on staff, my staff number, assuming it's 100, and I cut it down by 40%, you've lost 40% PAYE. So in as much as we do that, businesses will always want to look at other ways of managing their cost in order to also maintain some level of profitability.
Is that why a number of them are skipping taxes?
Now, for skipping of taxes, I always say that we have to look at it in context. Because there are provisions in the law that one can also take advantage of to ensure that they manage their tax cost. There are incentives in the law that one can take.
Tax.
Yes, there are tax incentives in the law.
But
that one can take
some also argue
of.
that we are giving too many tax rebates for an economy that is not strong.
No, we need to, like I said, we need to look at all of this in context. If you are talking about tax exemptions, it's different from, yes, it's a type of tax incentive, but in our statute, there are already certain tax incentives that you can plan around. For instance, location incentive. If you are into manufacturing and you decide to go and establish your business in an area that has a reduced tax rate, I just want to come to the very basic level for all of us. In an area that has a reduced tax rate, you would do that. But it also depends on the other cost variable, because if the road network is not good, in as much as you are paying less taxes, you are also incurring additional cost.
Because if your vehicle breaks down,
Yes,
the spare parts dealer has increased their prices because of imports.
Yes. So it's a holistic chain. And that's why Prof said that we are not only looking at what the cost of doing business looks at utility, transportation, infrastructure. So if you only look at tax, then you are being misled, because someone can plan around it, but you can't plan around transport. You need to transport your goods from a location to a certain point. And if the road is not good, how are you going to plan around a bad road? You can't plan around that.
That is also increased fuel, because transportation time increases.
Exactly, time. Assuming you even want to use an helicopter, you incur cost.
That's an extra cost.
Exactly. So all of these will interplay into the cost of doing business. That's why Gupta is saying that, look, we don't expect government to bring on board new taxes. Rather, we expect them to look at the aspects of doing business. It's very important. Creating the enabling environment is not only about the economic variables, like Prof said. You are looking at economic variables, but in real terms, how is it affecting the base? Go for the base. They are not interested in these percentages that we are talking about here.
Since you mentioned GHOne, we spoke to the president of GHOne on what he expects from the finance minister as he delivers in a short while the immediate budget review to Parliament. Let's hear president of GHOne. Then later we can hear from the Hoteliers Association as well.
Especially with regards to the local currency. When that happens, you are able to predict prices become stable in the market, turnover will increase, and all that will be able to service our debts, both local and abroad. And so it is very crucial to stabilize the local currency so that people, businesses will not collapse as a result. And that's why the stability that we are experiencing now, we should do everything possible to stabilize it, or if possible, make sure that the city gains some value again, so that businesses can have the ability to grow. In the year 2022, when we incurred a similar depression because of the depreciation of the cedi, we lost about 52% of our capital. And now from the year 2024, beginning of the year till today, people have lost about 30% of almost 30% of their working capital because of the depreciation of the currency. So the effect is very high. When it happens like that, prices of goods and services also go up, because the duties that we pay also go up, because the duties are all benchmarked with the exchange rate. And when the rate goes up, it means that we have to pay a lot more duty. Prices of goods become expensive, and then the consuming public ability to buy the volumes that they have to buy is also affected.
President of GHOne, Dr. Joseph Obeng, they are not expecting any new taxes to be introduced. Is that really a reality on the ground? And like you said, it will be suicidal if they introduce. But in our spirit of mobilizing revenue, we should not be surprised. Will you be surprised if there are any new taxes introduced?
Oh, certainly. I mean, like I said, you've already set some KPIs for yourself. I think that, like I did indicate, somewhere around in June, GRA, they were celebrating the fact that they've been able to raise sufficient revenue to even exceed their target. Their target, mid-year target, was around 67 billion, 67.9 billion Ghana cedis. They were able to raise 68 billion Ghana cedis. So they have exceeded their expectation. So you need to then do an introspection, ask yourself, if I've been able to exceed this, then that means the parameters I set for myself are possibly working. How do I enhance it in order to be able to then meet the target set for the year? So it will require the Revenue Authority to do an introspection. Although you have achieved your target, are there areas you could have worked on? I always give this example that you are an office manager at one of the revenue offices. You have 100 clients. You have been given a target of 10,000. Maybe out of the 100 clients, you have, let's say, 20 of them that are compliant, and you're able to get the 100,000 from the 20, or even get more from the 20. Let's say you're able to get, let's say, 12 million other than 10 million. Yes, you may have to clap for yourself, but then the question is, what happens to the 80? If I had paid attention to the 80, maybe I would have gotten 20, and possibly you would have known that the target you set for yourself may not have been realistic. You understand me? So these introspections would have to be done. Possibly they may have done same, because if you seek to introduce new taxes now, I mean, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for businesses and the ordinary Ghanaian on the street.
For businesses who are already struggling. We've seen a number of businesses being sold out of the country.
Exactly. Once you increase taxes, the ordinary businessmen will find way of managing their profit margins in order to stay aloof in there, in order to survive. So they would definitely find a way to do that, and it could be cutting down on certain expenses, which could also lead to what? Unemployment.
Job cuts.
And already we are having issues. If you look at the number of Ghanaians that are leaving this country on a daily basis, if you pass by the embassies,
my goodness,
the Canadian visa point at around Abilingpe, every morning if you pass there and you see the number of people there, it's as if you cry, you are not even serious being.
At one point I was driving around that side, so the minute I turned the traffic light as a journalist, I was very inquisitive. I was thinking probably that there was a demonstration going on or something, so I just stopped and asked, "Oh, are you guys demonstrating?" I said, "Madam, demonstrating, I want to leave Ghana."
I use that place every morning, and one time I said, do I even have a problem myself? Because all these people are living and I'm here. It's like, but the reality is that
people are unable to afford basic bread and butter. People's pockets are empty.
Exactly. So we got, and it's a daunting task. I always say that. I mean, I have said that we are a reflection of the kind of people who are doing the politics. There are people who just move straight from school and they are doing politics. And what kind of, I'm not doubting their technical ability, but experience is of importance in whatever we do, and it helps in certain parameters. So it's very important we look at all of this in terms of decision making. We go down to the basic level. You ask that, aside tax, are there other modes of raising revenue? And I told you that yes, if we are able to look at the various municipal assemblies, for them to give us possibly reports on areas that we could generate revenue, and we take time. For me, it's about the incubation period. And of course, the challenge is that it's also just opposed with a quest to earn revenue to develop. But if we could have time for some sectors and give it the right investment and make sure that it is well accounted for, then possibly we can rake in the needed revenue. If the UK thinks that they can raise revenue from visa, because all of us, they are looking at ways of not increasing taxes,
of not burdening the ordinary citizen.
But okay, fine. I have people who want to come to UK. A lot of people want to go to school in UK. A
lot of people want to see the UK.
So I increase, and look, the ordinary Ghanaian does not mind to pay to go.
Okay, as you mentioned other sectors, let's look at other sectors as well. We've been joined via Zoom by Samuel Agui. He's the General Secretary for the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning to you.
Great. The finance minister says that government is not likely to introduce new taxes. For you as an industry, you have also said that you do not expect that there will be introduction of any taxes. That will be good news if no new taxes are introduced. But is there something specific that you want the finance minister to touch on beyond the taxes?
There are a lot of them. Because from the very beginning that when you introduce a policy, that you don't get the result that you needed within 6 months, it tells you that the policy will not work. So therefore, for it to be there for years, and then taking us down the drain the way we are seeing how the economy is going, then obviously we need to review most of the policies that have been introduced. Where we need to make changes, we need to do that. Because when you go to the court, for instance, there are a myriad of levies and taxes that are all geared towards the same thing, but they are being paid in tolls. So what it means is that we are paying taxes upon taxes. And it's not right that our system should be in such a way that people will have to pay taxes on taxes in whatever that they buy or whatever service that they are getting from the provider. So we say that go back and look at it. Our industry is not growing in the way it's supposed to grow because the taxes that they are paying is not inuring to the benefit of the state. If you tax the people so much, what will happen is that the growth will be stopped. So we are saying, let our industries grow. Those who are importing, we've been able to talk to most of them that they need to go into industrialization, where they are even accepting that if only the environment is clear, they will then put some of their resources into manufacturing. So therefore, when people are bringing in machines, when people are bringing raw materials and all that to support whatever the government agenda is, and then when they end up paying more taxes than they should pay, then obviously what will happen is that most of them will sit back and wait to see what's happening in this country, especially in the time that we are going to have elections and people are do not know exactly what is going to happen when the elections are held. Because the atmosphere itself is not being peaceful the way we expect that when elections come, people should have their freedom in doing whatever they want to do. But foreigners who are in the country and want to invest their money are also thinking what will happen to their investment, and therefore most of them are putting their reserves back home, waiting to see what will happen. Because the economy itself or the policies that we have in place are not helping. Because nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow, especially when measures are taken to take more money from them. We have said in the past 2 years that import is killing businesses, or is killing Ghana because of the way we use foreign exchange in bringing these goods. Import has gone down almost about 40%. Yet still, the city keep on rising. Government has introduced certain measures to ensure that the city stabilize, but yet still the city is going up. So you ask yourself, what exactly are we not doing right that the city is rather going up and killing us? So government needs to take measures. And I expect that the finance minister will announce certain measures that will help in stabilizing the economy, going forward, making industries and other sectors grow. If we do that, Ghana will be the winner. Then there will be no need for you to say, I need to increase taxes and absorb money to pay my debt and all that. Because as we keep on borrowing, definitely someone will have to pay. And therefore you look at the tax policy that you have and then you increase them. But there's no always that when you increase taxes, the people will move or the country will develop. So we need to ensure that we, the citizens or the consumers, are able to spend more. As we spend, Ghana government also makes the money that they want. But if we are not spending and you keep on increasing and the little that we have keep on going to government, and then the salary or the income that we have keep on dwindling, then obviously we have a big issue to deal with.
Very much. We do hope that the finance minister will announce measures to stabilize the city, which is very critical for especially a country that is highly import driven. But let's go to Parliament. So Samuel Agwal he's a General Secretary, I beg your pardon, General Secretary of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. Let's go to Parliament briefly and find out the mood in Parliament ahead of the Finance Minister's arrival and subsequent presentation of the mid-year budget review. Ibrahim Al-Hassan is our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent.
Ibrahim, you're live on GHOne TV. First of all, are you surprised that it's past 10? We are yet to have proceedings commence?
I think I was the first person who came to this chamber. And if you go to the coffee shop, you find a lot of NDC members of Parliament, some of whom have even entered into the chamber and they are there taking their breakfast. Our colleagues from the MPP are not prepared because they are not here. You can count just few of them. Because the demoralizing state of this country under the watch of President Nana Addo and Dr. Bawumia is not only limited to those surviving opposition. Even our colleagues in the MPP themselves are demoralized. And I guess because they can tell that this mid-year budget is a mid-year budget that is visionless, that is not purposeful, that cannot salvage the mess that we have been subjected to, by Dr. Bawumia and President Nana Addo. And I guess that is the reason why you don't find the euphoria that characterized mid-year budget. Because if you observed the previous mid-year budgets, except even the last one and this one, the euphoria is not there. People are not enthused. People are not even interested. They are not interested because they know that once again is going to be the usual propaganda and stories. Tell me, what can this Minister for Finance and this government do to salvage the mess that they have subjected the people of this country?
You can talk about the relative stability of the city, or?
You see, when you say relative stability of the city, I find that extremely insulting. And that is the narrative of our colleagues. They say that, inflation is coming down. From where? They say, inflation was 54%. It is now around 20% plus. Who took it to 54%? A fair assessment of how good this government has performed is to look at what they inherited from the NDC. They took inflation around 15% today and took it up to 54, and they have managed to bring it around below 30, and they think that we should clap for them. A cedi to the dollar was a little below 4 cedis. It is now 16 cedis. Unemployment in this country under the NDC was 8.4%, and these are not my words, Statistical Service own figures. Today, unemployment is 14.7%. Yet you have Dr. Bawumia, who will look into our miserable faces without any shame and tell us that I have performed better than the NDC in terms of job creation, when the facts provided by a state institution such as the Statistical Service, speaks a different language. Yet he says that, I have created more jobs. If you create more jobs, it should be telling in the figures that is provided. Under the NDC, the debt to GDP was around 60% plus. Today, it took us almost to over 100%. Joblessness, a gallon of petrol was sold under President Mahama at 14 cedis per gallon. Today, a liter of petrol is sold at 15 cedis. Yet you have Dr. Bawumia, who without any shame is still telling us that, give me the mandate, give me the steer. I think that it's a joke of a campaign. That is why they themselves are not interested. That is why up to this time, the Minister for Finance is not even in this chamber. Is not even in Parliament. Ideally, by now, the Minister for Finance should have been there, so that at least we get ready. But the minister himself is not even interested.
Talking about the fuel prices, we have deregulation. So the market forces are...
We had deregulation under the NDC, and we have deregulations now. So that argument of deregulation is neither here nor there. The reason why fuel prices are going higher has nothing to do with deregulation. It has to do with the taxes. The taxes that are imposed on them, that is the problem. Look, the argument over this manufacturers. This government, in an attempt to deflect the argument, and says that it is the cement manufacturers who are making prices to go high. One actually forgets it's not the case. Over 95% of the inputs they use to produce cement are all imported. Clinker alone, you have over 20 different taxes imposed on clinker, including fumigation tax, including COVID levy. Now, when you raise so all these things, and you have demurrages, they have only 5 days to have their goods cleared when they bring them. Meanwhile, they are subjected to only one dock. So you can pay all the taxes you need to pay. You can still have your goods cleared because they are using only one dock. And when your goods delay beyond the 5 days, demurrages affected, higher import duties are slapped on them. Now, at the end of the day, government is failing to tell the people of this country that I am a huge contributor towards the price build-up of cement. Yet government is not. He's seeking to deflect the argument and says that, the cement producers are those who are making it. They are not transparent. Every cost, the cost build-up, for which reason it is calculated how much revenue they make and pay their necessary taxes, are provided to the Revenue Authority and the Ministry of Finance. So nothing is hidden. So what we are simply saying is that this government has messed up. In fact, I had the privileged opportunity to have served as a Deputy Minister for Trade and Industries. We were spending a little over $500 million in the importation of rice and poultry products into this country. Today, we are spending close to $3 billion. So it's a simple law of demand and supply. When you spend that much to import goods you have the capacity to produce, what happens? It means that the city will lose its value. And we have tried it in 2014. President Mahama, visionary a leader as he is, President Mahama succeeded in reducing the amount of money, the amount of money we're spending, the amount of rice we're importing into this country by 40%, and succeeded in increasing the production of local rice by 60%. I'm a rice producer. I have thousands bags of my rice at Yaba. Honorable Mustafa, the Minister for Youth and Sports, they are there. Nobody is buying. The state is not buying. Why? Look, the former Minister for Health, Ajima Menu, is a huge rice producer. He complained his rice is there because you have NADMO. NADMO is still using imported rice. NADMO, buffer stock, they are using imported rice. I mean, does it even make sense? Under the watch of Dr. Baumia, yet this man has the courage to look into our miserable faces and tell us that, vote for me. Steer to do what? Even when you are a participant in driving, because maybe perhaps the chalk they used to block to stop vehicles. That's why perhaps you must. So if you look at some of all these issues, on every aspect of the economy, this government has failed.
I want to stay on the cement prices a while longer because it's been a topical issue here. They're like, what's late? That doesn't mean that, despite the reservations, Parliament couldn't stop the airline from being late.
Look, first and foremost, a lot of people misconstrued the argument, and one lady did a video, someone sent it to me, very ignorant, without even appreciating the issues. We were never holding brief for the cement manufacturers. We were never saying that cement manufacturers do not also contribute in increasing the prices of cement. What we simply are saying is that government should not seek to push the entire blame on cement manufacturers. When you have over 95% of their inputs to produce the cements are imported, and they impose taxes on them. When they are buying those things, they buy them with dollar. So if the dollar has lost, the city has lost so much value, it means that they need more dollar to be able to do what? And to calculate their price, it is what? Cost and price will give them their profit. So that is what they will calculate. Now you have high import duties. The city has lost value so much. You have demurrages which start attracting their imports after 5 days, and many other things. So what we are simply saying is that government, it is not just to say that cement manufacturers must reduce prices, but tell us what you can do. If you are able to work on the city to appreciate to a certain level, as President Mahama did, they will be forced to reduce the cost and the prices of their cement. If you increase the number of days after which they can start attracting demurrages, it means that you're helping to reduce costs. If you reduce the import duty, do you know they pay taxes to the extent that they pay fumigation tax? Fumigation, COVID levy, we are still paying. When you raise issues of how they have mismanaged the economy, they tell you that, COVID and Ukraine, as if Ghana is an island. COVID affected every country in the world. So, but let's limit it to West Africa. We are here with Togo, with Benin, with Burkina Faso, with Ivory Coast, mention them with Senegal. None of the countries in the West African sub-region went to the IMF for $3 billion in the name of COVID. As a matter of fact, None of them went to the World Bank for almost $1 billion in the name of COVID. None of them got almost $500 million from the European Union. None of them took their infrastructure development funds, heritage fund. None of them dipped their hands into their central bank to take money. The only country that did that is Ghana. So why is it that we are the hardest hit? In fact, Burkina went for just $20 million. But you see, they will claim that they gave some section of Ghanaians free water and free electricity. Now we are being made to pay in the name of COVID levy. I have been filing questions. You are a reporter here, and I have been demanding for the Minister for Finance to come to this house to tell the people of this country how much they spent to provide the free water and the free electricity, and how much they have collected so far. Look, my conclusion is that they have collected more than they should collect, and that is why they are avoiding the question, and that is extorting the citizenry. Because if you impose a tax regime for a purpose, once you achieve that purpose, any other dime you take from the citizens in the name of tax is criminal, and that is exactly what this government is doing. So I'm saying that, look, the economy is in a very terrible state. There can't be any way to salvage it. So I'm wondering what the minister is coming to say. But I'm told that they may reintroduce, toll tax. I'm told.
Yeah, that one, government functionaries have said that there's a need for the roads to be tolled again.
So the decision to stop it, there should be some financial loss to the state.
It was stopped because it was envisaged that e-levy was going to at least rake in enough revenue.
But when they said it, we even had problem. We said the minister didn't have the capacity to stop a tax. Taxes are imposed by Parliament, but it took the minister for roads to direct that they should stop, and they stopped. That was illegal. So if you tell me, so assuming that was even the reason, and assuming that reason is justified, now after 1 year we got to know that e-levy was more a disaster than even what it was envisaged. Why didn't they reintroduce it? And what has made them to reintroduce it? What is this government coming to tell us? I feel pity for my senior brother and my teacher, Adam Muhammad Amin Anta. Honestly, I feel for that gentleman. What is he coming to tell the people of this country? What? Tell me.
So you have no hope in what he's going to present?
Do you have hope? Be honest with me. Do you have hope? Do you have hope? Salaries are not being paid. They are going about selling hotels, government properties. What is he coming to tell us? Frankly speaking, if there was any time in my political history as a young person that I lost absolute hope, I think it is now. And I know in the heart of your heart, you don't even have any confidence in what the minister is coming to read. But of course, as a journalist, you don't need to show your position. But I can tell you that you don't have hope. And those who are watching us at home, even within MPP, they certainly do not have any hope.
Mohamed Amin Anta took over from Kenuforiata. You guys, and I'm talking about not just you as member of parliament for Tamale Central, I'm not talking about your side as minority. Some members of the majority felt Kenuforiata was a problem. Do you still feel Kenuforiata was a problem?
No, Dr. Baumia is the problem, because he is the chairman of the economic management team. For a fish to rot, the rot will start from the head. So Nanado is the problem. Dr. Baumia is the problem, and the reason why Dr. Baumia is the problem, because one would say, oh, he's a random, he's just a vice president, but he is the chairman of the economic management team, so he's the bigger problem. Dr. Amin Anta is just a pawn. Honestly, I mean, the economy is in a sorry state, and I indicated on TV that I am aware of some dubious contracts that were signed. I mean, that were worked on, and that I should be very careful signing anything. I mean, I picked some information that there was some contract he didn't want to even sign, and the former Minister for Finance was insisting he signs, and I am happy that he stood his grounds and refused to do that, because, I mean, one day, and there will be a day of reckoning. There will be a day this government and these appointees will be investigated and prosecuted, and some of them will go to jail. There's no question at all about that. If the legal system is going to be very fair, transparent, some of them will go to jail.
Would that not be worth chanting?
Why? You have a deputy minister for youth and sports who was engaged in visa racketeering. The president, they lied to us that they set up a committee, investigative committee to investigate it, and gave a date. Long before the expiration of that day, the president went to Volta Region and announced that the gentleman was clean. Now, it was established beyond any doubt that visa racketeering was actually done. Some people were impersonated as ministers, as journalists. Now, if the gentleman was cleared, then who was engaged in it? And in any case, there's an aspect of it. We stooped so low as a state that we deceived another state, because the letter which was written to the Australian High Commission was signed by the Deputy Minister, and that letter encompassed the list of those who were participating in the program. So the impersonation was done. That is a serious crime. And I think that a person like Pius ought to be prosecuted. We cannot allow such things to go on. I mean, there is what we experience under this government, to be very honest, with all sincerity, is beyond corruption. It's thievery.
The CID, we are told, report cleared him.
Which CID report? I am saying, have you seen any report? And in any case, one thing they think we've forgotten, the date the president gave, they themselves gave, the time period they gave the CID, so-called CID, to have their investigation. There wasn't any investigation anyway, because in their haste to have the gentleman cleared, 2 weeks before the so-called CID was supposed to have finished their work, the president went to Volta again and declared him that he was not corrupt. Because you see, the stealing is supervised by the president. I mean, a merry renegotiation. And when we talk about this, people are quiet. A merry renegotiation. They criminally added over $800 million. And the addition was done under the supervision of the president, because it happened at the Flagstaff House. $800 million. It took the vigilance of the minority to realize that over $800 million was criminally added to the American negotiation. So if we never saw that, it means that this country would have been paying this money into someone's pocket.
Yeah, we talk about Oslo. Do you think that is the way we handle the Australian scandal that has actually given impetus to what we are witnessing from Oslo, where 9 individuals, we told, were non-members of the Ghana Paralympic team, but then went there and absconded?
Exactly. And the Minister for Foreign Affairs was arrogantly defending this. Apart from that, accommodations. Look, I am saying that tomorrow is pregnant. Tomorrow is pregnant. The Minister for Foreign Affairs ought to be prosecuted, investigated, and I have no doubt in mind when they investigate, they will find something on her. Pius, that gentleman is unfit to be a member of Parliament, and I mean it. A Minister of State who is engaged in visa racketeering. Now, if we claim that the so-called CID cleared him, so who engaged in that visa racketeering? Who wrote the letter to the Australian High Commission introducing the gentlemen who were supposed to participate in it and impersonating them? He wrote the letter. In fact, it took his minister to report him to the presidency. But you see, President Nanado is more than the word corrupt. What we experience under this government is thievery. Thievery, blatant thievery.
They also deflect the allegations and make same allegations against the Mahama administration.
What allegation? Tell me. They claim President Mahama had hotels in Dubai. They have not even provided a scintilla of evidence of those hotels. They claim that President Mahama was engaged in all manner of this. Tell me, President Mahama is out of office as a president for 7 years, getting to 8 years. Not a single investigation. Why? If you think that President Mahama was engaged in corrupt act, prosecute him. Why are you not? Tell me. They could not provide a scintilla. We were told President Mahama and Lodina had hotels. Where are those hotels? Where are those hotels? I mean, recently we realized the lie that President Mahama wanted to buy his official residence. I mean, what a lie. President Mahama stayed in that residence as a vice president. So it means that it was befitting of a vice president and not a president. Now, when he became a president, he said, look, I don't need to go into a bigger place. I'm comfortable here. He stayed there. Now, when he stayed there, and then every president, it is the responsibility of the state to provide you with accommodation when you leave office. And President Mahama said, look, I don't need a bigger accommodation. I've been staying here as a vice president and president. If you give that to me, it's fine. And they asked him to write. After they met us in Dihini, he came, he wrote. And then they looked at it and said President Mahama wanted to buy it. Have you seen the NYEP building, that big building, where the NYEP? President Kufuor wanted that building. So that lie that President Mahama was seeking to buy a building that belongs to the state, no, and they know it's not true, because they know that the section of the Ghanaian populace are so gullible that they can peddle such falsehood and people believe. But you see, times are changing. The people of this country are now wide awake. We have never had an elections where religion and ethnicity takes a center stage than we have today. Dr. Bawumia is preaching ethnicity and religion. I watched Abu Jinapor's video, the Minister for Lands, and to the northern region. He says that vote Dr. Bawumia because if you go to the Flagstaff House, there is a Bible, then you can have a Quran. What are you preaching? What are you preaching? Divisiveness on religious lines. So the pretense that they show is legendary. And because they know that they have lost it, to be very honest with you, a very honest, genuine person should be asking questions about the $800 million which was criminally added to a marriage negotiation deal. Someone should tell us the entire marriage deal was how much, and you are moving same, just the machines, the things that were brought to Kumasi, and you spend more than the entire money that was spent to bring the team from Dubai to this country. And this was done by my good friend, the Iranian mate. Another disaster. So you have two disasters who are seeking to lead this country. We should just pray.
Murtala Mohammed Ibrahim, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, still coming to you live from the public gallery of Parliament of Ghana. Today is a special day because, as I was saying earlier, every financial year, every fiscal year, there are two occasions when the House talks about figures, numbers, targets, and money. And that is the presentation of the main budget. That of this year was done last year, as the convention has always been. It was done by Ken Kuntunkurunku Oforiata, the immediate past finance minister. The review of that particular presentation will be done today by a different person, and that is Dr. Mohammed Amin Anta, who is expected here. Of course, he was expected at 10 a.m., but of course, just as we have come to know, usually those presentations do not go by the timelines as announced. And so from the chamber, you could tell, of course, when we were engaging Murtala, he was talking about the fact that the NDC members are ready and available. But if you look to the other side, the NPP members were not here in their numbers. You could tell that some of them have made their way to the chamber now. As you can see, Kennedy Ohini Ejapon is here in a tete-a-tete with the second deputy speaker, Andrew Esiama. Of course, Deputy Agric Minister Biafrin Pomado equally there as well. And of course, you can see Vincent Asifu, a member of Parliament for Utafo, clad in his white attire, and there as well. But of course, the Communications Minister Esela Owusu-Ekufo is here. And of course, the most wanted man, if I can call him that way, the man who was driven out of the chamber yesterday, I'm talking about Dr. Kweku Efriye. He was driven out of the chamber yesterday. Is here, of course. Osiche Mensah Bonsu has just equally worked in the immediate past majority leader, and he's in a conversation with the Sekhuyi also MP, who was driven out of the chamber yesterday, according to the speaker, for exhibiting some level of rudeness. And of course, I also have a member of parliament here from the Kintampo enclave, Kintampo North, who is versed in educational matters. In fact, he was a member of the education committee. I'll find out whether after the reshuffling of the committees, he still remains there. You are live on GHOne TV. First of all, for the purpose of your constituents who are watching GHOne TV today, introduce yourself fully.
Yes, I'm Honorable Joseph Kwame Kuma, popularly known as Jakala, MP for Kintampo, a servant of the people.
All right. Are you still a member of the Education Committee?
Yes. His grace is sufficient. I'm still maintaining the Education Select Committee and in the Judicial Committee. Yeah,
let me start from here. This morning there was a publication, front page of the Daily Dispatch newspaper, that if your party comes to power, you cancel the free education, the free senior high school. Is that accurate?
Which paper is that?
Daily Dispatch. The implementation of the free senior high school, but then it was a promise from the now president, then flag bearer Nana Danko Akufo-Addo.
All right, let me thank your cherished viewers, especially my constituents and the whole of Ghana. GHOne is one of the most prominent TV station channels that Ghanaians listen to. Let's set the record straight once and for all. In 2015, His Excellency John Dramani, before 2015, our present Vice Lady, Nana Blakwa, was a deputy. They came out with a policy. The FQ, the 1992 Constitution, let me start it this way, was put together by artisans, dressmakers, let me say what somebody will say, the people of Ghana. the MPP boycotted the Constitution. Their people boycotted the Constitution. They didn't contribute to it. So for anybody to always go by this phrase that the NDC said they were never ready for free senior high, it's a blatant lie and political mafiaism. Why do I say so? In Article 38(2), it's talk of free compulsory universal basic education. That is the foundation. The NDC government, knowing of what they put together in the Constitution, made sure educational infrastructure went for basic schools. And they said what? The education shall be free, compulsory, universally at the basic level. And that was why, if you check, His Excellency GHOne Rorris, late, God bless him, made sure that every hamlet, every village had a pavilion on which President Kufuor and everybody came and built on, that you can have a lot of schools dotted all over the country. To give the furtherance to this, then in the Constitution, Article 25, 1B, is there. After the free compulsory universal basic education, the Article 25, 1B also says that there shall be progressively free secondary education, technical and vocational. It's given birth in the Constitution. And so the NDC government then began in 2015 and launched the free senior high. There's an audiovisual in my phone. After that, I'll give it to you.
Is it
I'm coming.
Free senior high, your version?
Our version, yes, free senior high. Okay. Progressively free senior high, let me use that word. launched it. And the audiovisual is all over. Anybody disputing it is just being an intentionally blunt person on it. Are you getting me? So launched the free senior high, progressive senior high. And before he launched it, what happened? You saw that the e-blocks, the policy was that we should have e-blocks all over. And that was why they went into agreement with the World Bank that they were going to have over 200 e-blocks, which Ghanaians are aware. And their aim was, their implementation style was this. You see that in between two communities, the NDC government put the structure in between two communities, distance apart, so that they were to come with buses, so that the buses will commute daily, bring the people and come after school, the buses will take them back home. That was their policy, so that the educational budget for free education wouldn't be so much burdensome on the president or on the people of Ghana. Not like these people hurriedly did. And we saw the effects. Today you go to most of the schools, the children are on gari 2 times a day. They are on awamo, that, what do you call it? Oil rice.
Rice oil.
Oil rice for with Jenny. I have my children there. They tell me, Daddy, this is what is we are going. So every time they are calling for provisions, this is what is the reality on the ground. While somebody had a style, the MPP had a different style. And where did we, if I want to ask them, if they said JM did it, on which policy, on which constitution did they implement free senior high? On which constitution?
It's a promise. It's a promise that Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo made, and then he implemented it when he became president.
You did a political promise, and when people are telling you even about review, then you say they will cancel. World Bank, the document they give to World Bank before they are giving them the loan, they have indicated that they will be reviewing some of those policies, including free senior high. But when they come to Ghanaians, they come to tell us a different story.
So NDC will not cancel free HSS?
We will not cancel free HSS. That is the bottom of it.
What's your expectation of today's presentation from Dr. Amin Adam?
Yes, Dr. Amin Adam, I'll congratulate him. Amin Adam happened to be a mate in sixth form. All Tamaskans. Okay. I say that's why. Yeah. So Amin Adam happened to be a mate in sixth form before we all went to different institutions, and today, bless God, he's a finance minister shortly. My expectations are that there should be some tax cuts. Because the MPP government promised the citizenry that they were moving from 10 taxation to production. However, we have not less than 45 taxes that they have come to add on. So they deceived us. I expect that they cut down the taxes, remove certain ones out, and maybe have a measure for revenue improvement. I have a proposal for them. You know, one of the simple revenues? No. It is the toll booth they cancel. The toll booth.
Yeah, we are told it is returning. That must be exciting news for you. We are told we are bringing back.
It's returning. Then thumbs up, though, better late than never. You see, this was a policy that the cancellation was just, I don't know the word to use. How? Look at our roads. Maintenance, terrible. This is something that Prof. Atamils of Blessement. You see, Ghanaians should continue to thank NDC. Ghanaians should continue to thank NDC for the survival of Ghana. When Professor Atamils thought of this and implemented, look at the replica effects. Petty traders were always by those places. They sold. I know most of them are still glued to some of those places. Now you are implementing it and you have collapsed some. Do you know they have collapsed some? Look at the motorway. The millions of cedis they use in collapsing it. A drain on the economy. How can you happen this way? Ad hoc measures. It is not good for the nation. This is why we find ourselves where we are. So I mean to bring something revenue measure, not something on tax, but like this, what we had it before. I expect them the COVID-19 this thing should go because the leverage to go. We don't need it anymore. It's not in the system. By the grace of God, we are not together. If even I will advise the nation, you know, we have no emergency fund. We have no health emergency fund. Let me use that word. We have no health emergency fund. We should rather be thinking of something like that. But for COVID-19, away bus, because it's not something that is a drain on the economy. Because all those things that were supply free, Nanado and his government came and taxed us again. He came and taxed us back. The free water supply and whatever, they tax us back. Enough is enough. The airport taxes on coverage, up to now, we question on the floor how much revenue they made, whichever company they set up should come and account. We did everything. Ghanaians need to ask those questions. The only way they can ask those questions is to vote the MPP out and bring John Dramani Mahama back.
Yeah, you admit that the economy is not in the best of places.
That
right?
is it.
So why then do you propose that a tax line that probably is bringing government revenue must be removed at this point in time when we are before the IMF are seeking to show up even our revenue? The revenue targets are not being met, of course, not limited to just that of GRA, but as the target that the government set for itself relative to revenue mobilization.
The revenue targets are not being met because efficiency in collection is not good enough. There is no efficiency in a tax policy. A tax must be efficient to collect. The efficiency is not good. They like outsourcing too many things. The government, like every small thing, they want a contractor. Somebody should be. Meanwhile, you have the GRA workers, but you want to still give it to a contract for somebody like these road tools. What made it to fail? Because they had to outsource it to somebody to be collecting and paying the workers. These are the things that are making us to lose a lot. So something that is supposed fully to be for government and for government to benefit, somebody is taking a percentage away. This is what is the problem is. So that is it. So if they will take it, they should stop all those contracts that they have outsourced to other people to be doing things on behalf of Ghanaians. Do you know that about 2 million youth, 2 million youth are from Ghana Statistical Service. 2 million able-bodied youth are neither in education, in any form of employment, and they are in the system. So if you have this policy and you don't give it to a contract, or by way of contract, the youth should mobilize this thing for us. A very nice way of getting a ministry in charge and then doing this thing. Whatever. So government should also stop too many travels. It don't help the country at this time of the year. The dollars must stay in Ghana and reduce the dollar rates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable. And so we're still coming to you live from Parliament, and of course, as you can can see, the members of parliament are filing in one after the other, especially on the side of the majority. In fact, initially, there were many MPs on the side of the minority here. They have now filed out. And then when you move to the other side, of course, the majority members are equally here in their numbers. And of course, we will try to engage some of them. Of course, I can see the Minister for Youth and Sport here as well. And then, as I mentioned, Minister for Communications is here. The Vice Presidential candidate of the NPP, Dr. Matupoku Prempe, is here in a conversation with the Attorney General Godfrey Adame, Andrew Japamesa, the Minister for Tourism, and then Dominic Nitiu, Minister for Defense and Interior. And then, of course, just joined that team as the former Majority Leader, Member of Parliament for Swami. Of course, Osechi Mensa Bonsu there. I've seen the Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, as well in your picture there. Earlier was engaged in a conversation with the Minister for Communications and Digitalization. Of course, her ministry has been up for discussion, given the complaint about data charges, the cost of data in the country. And so, yes, Lily, we're still coming to you live from Parliament here. We're marking time to the arrival of the Finance Minister to present the mid-year budget review. What we understand is that this time around, the Minister will not ask for approval to spend more because government is seeking to cut down on expenditure. And I'm sure everybody knows why. It's because, first of all, we are shut out as a country from the international capital market. We're unable to borrow anymore, and so loans are not necessarily an option. That is one. On the flip side, if you look at the fact that we are under an IMF program, there is a limit to what we can do relative to raising revenue from outside rather than internal, and that's how come government will seek to tweak some handles and measures. And of course, we've heard about the reintroduction of toll booth or tolling on our roads. Again, we'll pick signal that there's one other tax line approved but has been stood down, and that's VAT on electricity. If the opposition to this particular tax line by Labour is overlooked, then we might have that equally returning. And here I'm talking about VAT on electricity. And so basically that is it. Of course, I will then return to you in the studio, and if there are others, especially on the side of the majority, that we will engage them for their own perspective ahead of the presentation by the Minister for Finance.
No, I'm coming. All right, so that's our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent and our head of political desk, Ibrahim Alassan, there live from the gallery in Parliament, where in a short while we will expect the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adama, to present the mid-year budget review, which will tell us how we have fared as a country in the last 6 months, whether or not we are likely to do better. Some say that we'll hear some good news. Is that really the case? Well, Ibrahim mentioned VAT on electricity. The IMF, in its July report, has indicated certainly that, well, even though it was suspended due to social resistance, it is likely something that might be back on the table. Should we expect this?
Like we have indicated, you saw the backslash that government got when they tried to introduce that, even when they were talking about lifeline and other stuff. It's important we avert our mind to the cost of doing business. That drives so many things. So, like I said, it's unlikely that they may try to bring that up. Possibly they may not. They may sit on the fence, see how the elections may go, and then see how they can.
Now, the IMF says if the inflation environment is more conducive, if in the coming days inflation goes down, is it likely that it will be reintroduced?
The likelihood of it, like I've indicated, it could be suicidal. Of course, maybe based on IMF's push. But it already, the cost of doing business is not that good in this country. And that was the more reason why people were already agitating. Exactly. And also its impact on some domestic homes in terms of the bills people are going to pay. And it's very, very important that you look at some of these. So of course, I do not think that IMF is also not sensitive to the outcry of the citizens, the ordinary Ghanaian on the street. Possibly they may then have a consensus with government to see which other area they can focus on in terms of revenue generation. But as it sits now, I do not see that popping its head up in terms of the discourse that we are having. I do not expect that. But then could government spring up a surprise? Possibly. Or they may not. But that surprise could be suicidal. I mean,
tough.
Well, I think it will be unconscionable for the government to reintroduce a particular tax. I think, where we are, like I mentioned, the number of new taxes that we have introduced. There are so many other things we can do to get more revenue without even adding any more tax lines. I think the tax assessment tool, the tax diagnosis assessment tool, shows that even the VAT, we are collecting less than 60% of what you are supposed to collect.
Exactly.
So why don't we improve the enforcement and the collection? Why do we want to bring new taxes? And electricity tax is a particularly terrible tax to introduce at this point. The tariffs are already gone up because of the quarterly adjustment. And the cost of doing business is already high, and the electricity has not been stable. So I don't think the government should contemplate at all bringing that tax. If anything, if you need to do more savings, look, in the IMF program, we spent more time or more effort collecting revenue to improve the government books. It's time for us to also look at the government expenditure side. Because it cannot just be
one-sided.
Revenue.
Why?
We've done a lot in terms of the revenue. Even then, so like I said, the ones that we have, we should pay attention to collecting them efficiently. And then we didn't even need to add new taxes. But we should also, I think it's time for us to also insist that now it's time for government to show that we are actually in a difficult time. So we need to do something about the government expenditures as well.
Okay. Let's go back to Parliament. Ibrahim Alassane is engaging some members of the majority. Let's hear them.
Sector briefly, but generally, what should we expect? This is the very final media budget.
I'm not the finance minister.
Yes, but your ministry made inputs.
Well, I can only infer that we should expect a tax-free media review budget. Government is very sensitive to the situation we find ourselves in, and all efforts being done by government is to alleviate the plight of the Ghanaian, and so you have a less burdened situation. I don't expect any more taxes to be introduced, and I also expect that government will come through with some packages for the business community and ensure that businesses are relieved of the burden that we are engaged in. Some people need some bailouts for businesses to either revamp them, to start and then sustain them. And so we should expect this budget to offer some support to the business environment and lift them up in their current situations, plus some other measures that are going to happen. I expect some pragmatic announcements on how we intend to hold the further growing strength of the dollar against the cedi and try and offer some solutions. And so it's going to be a wide range of measures, but I do know that there's going to be a general relief for people and businesses.
Now, of course, revenue mobilization is always on the agenda. One tool that was to be deployed to assist government in revamping the revenue mobilization and meeting its target and probably going beyond is property rate. Originally, it was under your ministry. It was moved to the finance. Now it's been suspended. Are there works in the process in that regard?
Yes, you should hear an announcement by property rates when the minister mounts the floor. Initially,
So that's Ibrahim Alassane engaging the Member of Parliament for Techiman South, Martin Ajayman Sakosa there. We'll go back to them pretty shortly. You know, technology, he's been speaking for a long time, so we will have to charge our batteries and go back. But, Prof, you're making a point before I catch you to go to Parliament. Is there any magic wand that this current finance minister can wield to turn the economy around, like they're saying? Is he really under pressure?
I don't think there's a single thing that he can do. In fact, there's not much he can do. Since he's taken over, though, I've seen his posturing and level of public engagement has been much better than we saw with the previous finance minister. I'm sure you've seen that he provides quarterly, there's a monthly update with the press, and then also he's instituted the quarterly economic roundtable with academia. I think so. He comes across as being a little bit more willing to engage and to at least share information about the economy. That's positive. But I mean, he's a very difficult position in terms of what he can do to influence the economic policy at this moment. We are in an IMF program. The government is fully committed to it, and the main budget has been read. So, best case scenario, just minor tweaks. I don't think there's much for him to do. Of course, he can decide that he will advise, they can decide to cut the expenditure. If that is something that I would definitely be pleased to hear, but I suspect that might not happen.
Gilbert, what of you? Is the finance minister under pressure?
Not necessarily under pressure. I would say it's a pressure he may necessarily put on himself. Like Prof said, the KPIs are already there. In terms of tax collection, in indirect taxes, we are doing less than 60%. So you need to then do an introspection of the key drivers of revenue mobilization and how to enhance it. I think that Ibrahim made mention of property rates. There was a lot that has been said about that in terms of the Ghana Revenue Authority working in hand with the various assemblies to be able to, execute that mandate. Now the question is, how efficient have we been in terms of property rate collection, which is also another stream of tax or revenue that you can mobilize. If you decide to even zone it, they are the same parliamentarians that own these properties. I've always said that. So when it comes to policies, that will lead into the efficient operation of this, it becomes quite of a challenge. But it's an area that could be looked at in terms of the collection and the accounting for same. We first have to look at what has been the system. Has the system been that efficient? Is there the need to bring in GRA to help in the collection? If they are coming in, how would they fit in? You see, so it's very, very important. As Prof said, we have a lot of tax handles. If you look at the budget statement that was read by our former finance minister, Kenneth Fureta, just some few ones that I jotted down. Extension of the VAT zero rating on locally manufactured textiles. How has this fared on the locally manufactured textile industry? Has it created the needed employment? Has it created the needed revenue? I mean, there's a reason why you brought on board this tax policy. Has it seen the light of day in terms of what you seek to achieve? zero rating of locally manufactured sanitary parts. This was also very laudable, but then the question is, what already existed? Was that system even productive at all for us to think about zero rating some of these things? And even after doing that, how has that industry fared? Exemption on imports on agricultural machinery, equipment, and medical consumables and raw materials. How has this policy fared? It's very important that we do some evaluation of some of these policies and the needed revenue that we think, because you seek to exempt, but of course it is to create something that would also bring in some form of revenue. Have we been forthcoming with some of these measures? It's very, very important.
Is this then to say that we introduce tax brackets or tax incentives, or we introduce taxes without proper consultation?
No, I wouldn't rush to conclude in that regard, because I know that the Ministry of Finance have a tax policy unit, except to say that when we look at GRA is a tax implementation body. They are just to implement, but most likely when it comes to the drafting of the policy, the question is, do we involve all stakeholders? Luxury vehicle taxes, you saw the challenges that came. Some tax, even this taxes, VAT on electricity. So yes, most at times, or it's very important that in order to get some of these things running effectively, you need to be engaging. But there's one thing to engage, and there's one thing to set out the policy to implement. You can seek the opinion of Prof. Prof can give you his opinion, but at the time of implementation, whatever you choose to do does not rest with Prof or at me.
That's true.
You see, so one government can say, okay, we've done the consultation, you have done all of these things, but then what is the end result?
We've seen evidence of a lot of resistance, even from people who are stakeholders when it comes to the implementation. That's why I'm asking that. If indeed there was broader consultation in the implementation of these taxes.
Sometimes they do. In most cases they do. They engage a lot of people to have a conversation. But you see, the challenge is over time, those people will also lose interest in that, because people will be giving cogent feedback. But at the tail end of implementation, these cogent feedbacks are not implemented. So you may want to do the stakeholder consultation, but what caliber of resources are coming to have that discourse? It's very, very important. If always I come and I say ABCD, in the end I don't see it reflecting, do you think tomorrow I'll come?
Not at all.
Exactly. So after the stakeholder consultation, they can tick that box and say we do it. But when it gets to the implementation stage, how have you factored in the stakeholder consultation into the implementation stage? And even if you've not been able to do that, there should be reasons that these learned persons that you invited can make meaning out of why their line of thinking were not factored into. And that is what is missing in this country. Well, we have a lot of intellectuals. They'll give their input, they'll say A, B, C, D. In the end, you go for economic whatever at Senchi, wherever we do all, they'll say everything.
Senchi caucus.
Yes, when we come at the implementation stage. So tomorrow you call Prof, and Prof will not have that joy to even come, because I said A, B, C, D. And when I said it, other well-learned parties agreed to that fact. It's not that they disagreed. So what changed? That's why I said most likely, because we can take the boxes, but the execution stage will then determine whether some of these discourse will still continue to see the light of day in future. It's very, very important.
Okay, let's go back to Parliament again. Ibrahim Alassane is engaging some members of Parliament as the Finance Minister readies himself to present the mid-year budget to Parliament and, of course, to all of us as Ghanaians. What really should the Finance Minister avoid saying today?
Will not be able to go to the Eurobond market to borrow $3 billion as he had always been doing since 2018 to, first of all, shore up the city and then ensure some relative stability as far as the local currency is concerned. We told that in the course of the last few weeks, there's been some level of stability. We're live on GHOne TV. Honorable, briefly, we are live on GHOne TV. First of all, we engaged you a few days ago, and then you talk about fuel. A liter of fuel now, about 15 cedis. Do you expect to hear anything that will ameliorate the suffering of consumers in that regard?
Well, the information I'm picking is just a statement. It's not a supplementary budget. So be that as may, it means that they are not going to release taxes. It means that they are not going to review the budget just to tell us the state of the economic situation of the country. And so I cannot see anything positive from a mere statement. If it was going to be a supplementary budget, then it meant that you're going to tweak the budget, either reduce taxes or come up with some policies to ameliorate the situation. As you are well aware, from January to date, the currency has depreciated quite significantly, which is impacting on commodities. Transport fares are also going to go up, which means that food prices will go up. Already, food inflation is the highest in terms of the inflation basket. That would further exacerbate the already harsh living condition that the ordinary Ghanaian is going through. So it appears that the managers of the economy are not getting the solution. They are not finding the right solution to the challenges. I've looked at the latest Bank of Ghana financial and economic figures. Cocoa is doing very, very bad. Crude oil is doing well in terms of the exports. So you will see a positive current account, but the money doesn't come down. So you are just seeing a positive trade balance, but you won't get the money.
Why?
Because we don't control the value chain when it comes to crude oil. Cocoa, you control it. So you rather want your cocoa to do well instead of your crude oil. The current account is also doing very, very bad. In fact, because of the domestic and the international debt exchange, capital flow into the economy is reduced drastically. The only positive side is that we are not servicing our debt. But as you don't service your debt too, then the debt keeps compounding. So it looks very, very bleak. It looks very, very bad. And I think that we just need a change of government to send a goodwill to the international community, to the business community, so that we can reset the economy and do what is needful. Thank you.
Finally, the MPA, of course, told us that the country is now exporting crude and fuel to other neighboring West African countries. That was supposed to be good news. You are saying that we shouldn't jubilate over that?
We've always been exporting crude. In 2022, we exported $1.4 billion of crude. In 2023, we exported about $1.2 billion of crude. That is government and its agencies alone, not the entire nation. If you look at the entire nation, it's a huge amount. But I'm looking at what comes to the Republic of Ghana in terms of our carried and participating interest, surface rentals and all that. And so it's not new. We've always exported. And the issue about exporting to neighboring countries is that it's just a pass-through. What it means that you import and export. So I don't see the real game changer there. I don't think so at all. Right. I mean, they should rather concentrate on efficiency and reducing costs. I think that is where they should be looking at.
John Jinapo, the minority spokesperson on energy, and of course, Member of Parliament for Yapi Kosovo, also sharing his insights with us. And of course, as I mentioned, the members of Parliament, some of them are here. In fact, some come in and they go out. Sitting has not yet started. I was basically telling you about the supplementary budget and the fact that this time around the finance minister doesn't intend requesting for approval. And so just as you heard John Jinapo say, what he's coming to do is to present a statement. Just as any minister can come to Parliament and read a statement, just like any member of Parliament can file a statement which will be admitted by the Speaker, and then that member of Parliament will then read the statement, after which his colleagues are allowed to contribute, make contributions. Mind you, if the minister presents a statement, we will not see a debate. All that members of parliament will be allowed to do on the back of the presentation is to make comments or contributions. And so, unlike the real budget, after which, if the finance minister finishes the presentation, you have time allotted from ranking members to floor members to heads of chairmen and then ranking members of committees to the leadership of both sides, allotted times, taking their time researching and debating proper the content. This time around, the reverse will be the reality. What it means is that members of parliament will just get up, make comments, after which the other members of parliament from the other side also take their turns. There will not be a debate. And that was what the minority, through its leader, Dr. Kesela Atuforsen, was seeking answers to the last time the business statement was presented, which captured today's exercise to be just a statement on the media budget review. Back to you in the studios.
So that's Ibrahim Al-Hassan. He's a parliamentary affairs correspondent and head of political desk here at AIB Network. We're awaiting the finance minister's arrival, the parliament, in the chamber of parliament to deliver the mid-year budget review. What new thing will he say? Are you expecting anything? Share with us your thoughts and comments on all our social media pages. We take a break, and when we return, hopefully the finance minister would have arrived.
Welcome back. You're watching GHOne Television, and we're bringing you a live coverage of the mid-year budget review presentation. The Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, is expected to arrive in Parliament to deliver the mid-year budget review. And obviously, my colleague Lily Mohammed, together with the guests in the studio, have been discussing various aspects of expectations as far as this particular budget presentation is concerned. Of course, this is something which happens every single year. The budget is presented somewhere at the beginning of the year, and somewhere in the middle of the year, a budget review is done. Sometimes a supplementary budget is asked for. Sometimes there is no supplementary budget. For this particular presentation, we have information that the Finance Minister is not expected to come into Parliament and ask for more money or to present a supplementary budget. And a wide range of expectations have come from the Ghana Union Traders Association, from the Food and Beverages Association, from the Importers Exporters Association. And one of the major things that they've all been talking about is the stabilization of the cedi. They want to hear that measures have been announced so that moving forward till the end of the year, especially as we're entering an election year, the cedi will remain where it is, at least so that they can have some respite with regard to doing business. Another issue that has come up strongly is the issue of taxes. Well, there is no expectation for new taxes to be introduced, but the government will definitely still have to find ways and means to continue to rake in the revenue that they need to be able to prosecute the developmental agenda of the country. And one of the other things that we may see in this budget as well has got to do with a reduction in expenditure. We expect the Finance Minister to announce that there is going to be some cuts in terms of government expenditure in various areas. So all of these are things that we are waiting to see, because the Finance Minister obviously hasn't presented the mid-year budget review yet, and so we'll see how all of that plays out. The guests are still here in the studio, and we'll get into a discussion as regards these issues. And of course, the first budget presentation, that one was done by Ken Ofori-Atta, who was Finance Minister at the time. And of course, we are also under an IMF program, so all of that featured. How has the government performed, looking at the previous budgets that was presented and looking ahead? What more expectations can we have? Professor Patrick Assuming is still here in the studio with us. We're always very happy to have him here in the studio. Anytime he comes out, and he's not joining us on Zoom and he's actually in the studio, we are very excited. And he's been here with us all morning. Gilbert Addo is also here in the studio with us. Of course, he's a senior manager business tax at Deloitte, and they've been engaging in discussions with my colleague Lily Mohammed. But continuing with the discussion, obviously the Finance Minister has not arrived in Parliament yet. One would have expected that by now he'll be there, but he's not there yet. So we are still waiting for him to come. But the first budget was presented by Ken Ofori-Atta, and a raft of measures were announced with regard to what was going to happen, how revenue was going to be generated, how the IMF bailout that we've entered into was going to play out, expectations on reaching an agreement with external creditors and all of that with regard to the detection program and all. So looking ahead, now that we are at a point where we have to do a mid-year budget review, from what you said, Prof, and let me start with you on this. How has the original budget performed, in your estimation?
Well, I think so far, when we present the budget, there are many different aspects. So we are going to set fiscal targets. Mm-hmm. That is about government finances, revenue, and the expenditures. Mm-hmm. Then we are also going to give targets about the broader macroeconomy. What will happen to the size of the economy, that's the growth rate, the rate of increase of prices, what will happen to the currency. So I think so far, based on the information we have, you think that in terms of the macroeconomic target, we are there or thereabout. Mm-hmm. For the growth rate, we've only seen one release, mm-hmm. which was a little higher than expectation. It doesn't mean that all is well, but at least if you take the number as it is, it was a little higher than was expected for the first quarter. The inflation, probably we would have expected that would be a little bit lower than we are. Don't forget, we started the year just around 23 or so.
Yes.
We are still hovering around that number.
The 20s,
So we still haven't made significant progress in that, on that score. In terms of the execution of the fiscal plan, I think we are just about where we should be. On the revenue side, it looks like we are not significantly below our target. And for the fiscal side, assuming that all the information is what we have, then we are just about where we should be. I think the biggest, in terms of the macroeconomy, the biggest problem has been the currency, which this year, the first half of this year, hasn't been very stable.
Yeah, it's been fluctuating.
Exactly. And we see when you are an import-dependent economy like we are, then you see that every time the currency is depreciating, it really brings a lot of problems. So I think on that score, we haven't done very well. But, these are the targets that the budget sets. In terms of other things happening within the economy that the budget doesn't really bring targets, like unemployment or poverty, inequality. Clearly, the information that has been released suggests that we haven't made a lot of progress. It wasn't long when you were reporting on the, by you, I mean the media has been reporting on the multidimensional poverty.
Yes.
And we see that we haven't made any progress at all. The percentage of the youth who are neither in employment or education or training has inched up a little bit from where they were the previous reading. So I think even though on the macro target side, it looks like maybe we are there or there about where we should be, but it's not translating into people's day-to-day living conditions. And as we were discussing earlier on, there are many reasons for that. So when the economy is growing, the sources of growth matters in terms of how it will translate into people's living conditions. If the sectors that are growing are sectors that have very relatively little Ghanaian participation, then the growth may not necessarily translate into improvement in people's day-to-day living. And we are all aware about the ongoing crisis with food and food prices. So even though you say that the inflation rate has reduced, it doesn't mean that prices are falling. Food prices are still rising.
Inflation is still quite high.
Food inflation is still quite high. In fact, the May reading had gone down, the June reading went up. So it just tells you that we are still in a very difficult place. The economy is still in a very difficult place.
And I mean, from your perspective, looking at the budget which was presented by Ken Ofori-Atta, that was his last budget. His successor is coming to present a new one. Between the period, how would you say that budget has performed in your own estimation?
Great. So I'll be a bit skewed because of tax issues.
Yes, tax issues.
I mean, relatively, if we look at how GRA has fared, because they are the key revenue mobilization agency in Ghana. One would say that to the extent that they have been able to exceed the target that was set for them, I mean, we are on track. But I always say that the devil is in the details. It's not just about we haven't exceeded the target. Could we have gone a step further? I mean, the target was around 67.9 billion. We are having 68 billion. Yes, it's good, but could we have gone to 70? Could we have gone to 80? So if we are to look at the real issues, what could have been done better are the questions we should be asking. Hitherto, when I was having a conversation with your colleague, I said,
with Lily,
I could be an office manager for one of the tax offices. I have 100 taxpayers. you have given me a target of 100,000, and I'm able to get a target of 100,000 from 20 of the 100 taxpayers I have. Yes, I'll clap for myself. I've done well.
You've achieved your target. You've hit your target. But what about the others?
Well, what about the others? So it is always important that we look at the real facts. Unfortunately, because in terms of revenue mobilization, we are so much target driven, we don't look at the qualitative issues. Yes, once we hit the target, we are happy. But let's go in there and look at the qualitative issues and how those issues could have interplayed in we becoming more efficient in terms of revenue mobilization. And this is not to set aside the gains that has been made, except to say that we need to look at other streams of revenue generation. If you take a quick look at the entire revenue projection for government at the time, Ken Oforiatta, the Honorable Minister for Finance, the past Honorable Minister of Finance did read out during the budget presentation. We set a revenue target of 176.4 billion Ghana cedis.
Yeah.
Tax revenue encompasses 77% of that. 77% of that. So if you are even to divide it, how have we fared? It needs to be looked at in order not to put a lot of tax burden on the citizenry. What other mode of revenue generation can we look at? Have we looked at it at all? Maybe we've started. What have we been able to generate from those revenue streams? It's very important. If you look at the breakdown, we talk about non-tax revenue. Non-tax revenue is 14.8 billion Ghana cedi as expected. Oil revenue 14.9, almost 15 billion Ghana cedi. Other revenue 7.59, or let's say 8 billion Ghana cedi. Grants. If we look at all these handlers in terms of reporting, how have we, those are the qualitative issues, how have we fared?
Right.
In order to possibly look at improving all those issues well, we are looking at grants. Grants is coming from elsewhere. What are the other revenues? How can we invest in order to earn more? As a country, we have a lot of our citizens going to Dubai. To do what?
Yeah, to bring in goods, to come and sell.
Not and also to, but then in terms of tourism.
Yeah.
Because someone took a deliberate decision to make it that way so that you come, watch and pay aside the goods. What is the policy narrative for Ghana? Maybe it's there. I have not researched that, but then if we tend to look at other streams of revenue and then give ourselves time, we could be raking in the necessary returns in future.
But even with regard to bringing in revenue, one would say that the government is stuck between a rock and a hard place as at now, because of the current situation we find ourselves in. So government needs all the money that it can get.
Yes.
Yet there are some people who are expecting that some taxes should be removed. Right? I spoke to the Hoteliers Association, I think yesterday, while I was doing the news, and Guta as well, and they were talking about the COVID levy, for example. They say they don't see the reason why the COVID levy should still be there. So in the media budget review, perhaps the finance minister should announce that we are not paying the COVID levy anymore. Among other things, where government is now, can the government afford to even take off any taxes or even one tax?
Yes, Prof said something which was very instructive. You see, the KPIs have been set already. So what are you coming to remove? Of course, I have argued that when we look at COVID, there are two schools of thought when it comes to the COVID levy. And for me, transparency is key. That is not to say that government have not been transparent, but I'm saying that transparency is key in terms of accountability. What was the essence of the COVID levy? What have we collected? How has that been used? Is it the case that what we sought to use the levy to cure, have we been able to do that? Because the thinking of the ordinary Ghanaian was that we're collecting the levies because of COVID. COVID is no more. So why are you collecting the levy? But possibly, when you look at the policy drivers, you could see that maybe it's not only because of COVID. There could be other extraneous issues.
Right.
Once you do not open it up for people to be aware of that, that call will still be there. I've made that call before, but someone said, look, are you sure that the COVID this has been cleared? Of course, sometimes issues are raised because you have not interrogated much. You meet a deadlock. But the question is, transparency is key. We are taking the COVID levy. COVID is not no more, but A, B, C, D is what it is. But we as a nation have not been forthcoming in terms of
proper explanation,
and also in terms of indirect taxes. Once we are okay and we are able to collect, a new name will be given to the COVID levy in future. A new name will be given to it by another government.
And it will not be COVID.
And it will not be COVID levy. It will be something
we are doing. Right.
See, so they are right in making that call.
Okay. All right. Prof, we would have to be wrapping this up, take another break and then wait for the finance minister to come out. Take a final word, on all of this, from all the discussions that we've been having, as regards the expectations of the budget. I'll take a final word from you.
I think, ultimately, we talk about numbers, indicators. Ultimately, it's people's lives that we are talking about. So whatever we do, the goal, whatever tax we are going to introduce or not introduce, or whatever expenditure cuts we are going to do or not do, I think we should always put a human face to it. It's human lives, it's Ghanaian lives that we are talking about. So it's okay for people to come and tell us that, the economy is recovering. But it shouldn't be in the terms of some GDP number. How many people have been lifted out of poverty? How many people can now afford their daily meals? What extent are businesses able to operate profitably without being hanged by, the macroeconomic circumstances? That's what matters. So I think that's what you should always keep in mind.
Okay.
It's not just about inflation says this or GDP growth says this.
All right. We're still waiting for the finance minister to come to Parliament, but we'll wrap up this part of the discussion here. And then, of course, when the finance minister gets into Parliament, we'll be bringing you a live coverage of that, the mid-year budget review presentation by Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. But gentlemen, I'm very grateful that you joined us in the studio. Professor Patrick Esubing, always a pleasure to have you. And of course, Gilbert Addo from Deloitte, the tax man. Thank you very much for joining us. This is GHOne TV. Keep watching. When it's time to get to Parliament, we'll take you there.